Welcome to the N4 podcast, where we do well-researched policy analysis and political commentary for Kenya and the rest of the world. This is your host, Anthony Ngeru, no fluff, no spin, just conversations that matter. And today, we are breaking down a number that should be in every Kenyan's headline and what the data behind it actually means for ordinary households. 2.4 million Kenyans. That is the upper end of how many more people the World Bank says could fall below the poverty line by the end of 2026. And this warning came in the World Bank's Kenya's economic update released on the 9th of July 2026, and it is not a prediction. It is a risk estimate based on micro simulation models that measure the rising fuel and food prices cascade through a household's economy. But the range the bank gives is significant, between 1 million and 2.4 million additional Kenyans. And the bank's own lead economist, Tom Bundevot, said at the report's launch that with recent Middle East developments, the lower end of the estimate is not guaranteed. And I quote what he said: "At the moment, we are fortunate to be on the lower end of those estimates, meaning an increase of about 1 million people. With the recent developments in the Middle East, however, that remains to be seen." So, to understand this warning, you need to understand the chain that connects a conflict in the Middle East to a Kenyan family's ability to eat. Here is how it works, step by step. So, the World Bank's economic update of July the 9th, 2026 earmarks the Middle East conflict disrupting global oil supply and shipping routes. Kenya imports over 50% of petroleum products from the Middle East, that is according to the People Daily in April 2026, and diesel rose 17.9% between March and April 2026, and petrol 10.8%, and that is according to the World Bank. Transport prices rose up 10% year on year in April 2026, and still 9.8 in June of 2026. Food inflation 8.8% in April 2026, 8.6% in June 2026, and that is according to World Bank. Urban households are projected to be the most heavily affected, and with over 500,000 Kenyans working in the Gulf states, Kenya could lose up to 5.17 billion Kenya shillings. That is approximately $40 million every month. That is according to the People Daily. And poverty rate could rise 2 to 4.5% point. That is approximately 1 million to 2.4 million poor Kenyans. That is according to the World Bank. So as you can see, that chain is not theoretical. It is already showing up in the prices of matatu rides, the cost of unga, and the electricity bill of every small business that runs machinery. The poverty line that this report uses is $3 per person, and at the current exchange rate, that is approximately 387 per day. Think about it for a moment. 387. That is roughly what a return matatu fare costs in Nairobi. It is less than 2 liters of cooking oil. It is one modest meal for a family of 4 with nothing left over. The World Bank says the population most at risk are those who are just above the line right now, not deeply poor, but with almost no buffer. A small increase in prices of diesel, which raise the cost of bus fares that takes you to work, which raise the cost of food at the market, which takes money you do not have, is enough to push you across the line. And here is the structural challenge that makes this worse. Of the roughly 800,000 Kenyans who enter the labor market every year, only about 100,000 of them get formal employment. The rest join the informal sector, where there is no minimum wage protection, no sick leave, and no cushion when prices rise. The World Bank reports that informal jobs accounted for 83.8% of total employment in Kenya in 2025. And these are the people the 2.4 million figure is really talking about. The government has not been entirely passive. In response to rising fuel prices, VAT of petroleum products was cut from 16% to 8%. The EPRA set palm prices in Nairobi at 214 shillings and 25 cents for super petrol and 242 shillings and 92 cents for diesel in May. And after protests by matatu operators, diesel later dropped to 232 shillings and 86 cents, and currently prices stand at 214 shillings and 3 cents for petrol and 222 shillings and 86 cents for diesel. The World Bank acknowledges these measures as helpful in the short term, but it calculated that the VAT cut cost the government between 11 billion and 22 billion in the last quarter of 2025-2026 financial year, equivalent to 0.05 to 0.1% of the GDP. That is revenue the government needs in a year, when public debt already stands at around 69% of the GDP, and when interest payments already consume more than a third of all government revenues. The bank also the bank's recommendations go beyond fuel subsidies. It is calling for faster creation of formal jobs, stronger and better targeted social protection for households near the poverty line, continued fiscal consolidation, improved revenue collection, and more efficient public spending. The World Bank's Division Director of Kenya, Kimia Ofan, put it plainly, and I will quote him. He said, while Kenya has maintained growth of about 4.5% for more than a decade, it also has significant population growth, with many young people entering the labor market every year. That means the country needs faster growth, and we believe that is highly achievable. There are two numbers sitting alongside the poverty warning that deserve attention. The World Bank has cut Kenya's 2026 economic growth forecast to 4.3%, which is down from 4.6% as recorded in 2025, and 0.6 percentage points below its own pre-conflict projection. The Kenyan government still projects 5%. That is a significant gap between what the government expects and what the bank's models are showing. And the bank raised risk alongside Middle East prices and remittances, and that is the 2027 general elections. It has specifically warned that approaching elections could delay investment decisions and complicate fiscal reforms. Businesses hold back when political outcomes are uncertain, and the combination of global prices shock, a tightening fiscal space, and an election year is not a comfortable combination for an economy where nearly half of the population already lives below $3 a day. So the number is 2.4 million, but behind that number is not a statistic. It is a family in Nairobi deciding between school fees and food. It is a trader in Kisumu absorbing another rise in transport costs. It is a matatu driver watching fuel prices eat into take-home pay that was never generous even in the beginning. What happens in the Middle East does not stay in the Middle East. It arrives here as well. In the price of a liter of cooking oil, and right now the World Bank is telling us that arrival is already underway. I'm Anton Ingeru. Keep it real and stay informed.